Takes a moment. Hey guys, welcome to the show. I'm going to make sure this is all set up and ready. I'm going to put this off to the side. Today we have Missy Beavers, who is an integrative life coach and I'll let you just introduce yourself, Missy.
All right, I'll introduce myself. Hi, friends. My name is Missy Beavers. As Kim said, I'm an integrative life coach. I also have a master's degree in nutrition, and I specialize in gut health and specifically how to reverse thyroid symptoms by healing the gut.
And we're going to talk about
exactly that
today.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring Missy on because she has something super important, especially right now. We're kind of taxed with all of this extra stress and anxiety, worry, and fear. And that is huge for our health and how it affects like all of our systems of the body, but especially like when we're talking about our endocrine system, our hormones, thyroids, like this is such a big deal already. And now we have all of this crisis and fear and this unknown happening on top of that. And I thought it would be a very important time for Missy to come on and give you some takeaways, things that you can do now to settle in and begin to take care of your nervous system, your endocrine system. So that's it. I want to talk a little bit about your story, Missy, and how you came about discovering this for yourself, like even previous to us meeting up, where you were before you started, this process and began integrating all of this for your clients. So I'll let you take the floor.
Okay. My story is fun because it really starts at the dawn of time for me. So when I was 7 years old, I was a normal 7-year-old child, playing, eating, thin. And then, so this was second grade. And then I started getting migraines. And those migraines led to throwing up every day, and they started leading to weight gain. So my mom took me to all kinds of doctors. I remember having MRIs done. They thought I had a brain tumor. They thought I had different metabolic diseases. Nobody could figure out where these migraines were coming from. So within a year's time, I gained 50 pounds. And that's a lot for a 7-year-old. So basically, I doubled my weight. And our doctors just had no answers. And so my mom was super vigilant, and she pushed for thyroid testing because she herself had Graves' disease and she had her thyroid removed. So they ran some thyroid testing when I was 8 after a year of all these tests and gaining weight. And then they discovered I had Hashimoto's disease. So this is a very common thyroid problem in the US, and some of you watching may have this problem. It's where the immune system attacks the cells of the thyroid. So your thyroid hormone is insufficient, meaning that you gain weight and you struggle with these things. Migraines, of course, was my first symptom, but there's all kinds of other things. So that is where my interest in thyroid disease began when I was 8 years old. And they put me on Synthroid, which is a synthetic form of thyroid hormone. And when my doctor gave it to me at 8 years old, I remember this clearly. He gave my mom the prescription and said, she'll take 1 pill a day for the rest of her life, and she'll never get off of it. So wow. That is a very common experience. Nearly every one of my clients comes to me with that exact same exchange with their doctor of, here's a prescription, take one every day. This is your life now. So for me, that led me into, at 8 years old, that catapulted me into the, you can't tell me what to do. Like I wanted to solve my own disease. And so it has shaped my career. I ended up going into nutrition, studying traditional nutrition. That's what my master's degree is in. And just really seeking to unravel my own health problems. I wanted to find a solution for my health. And what was born out of that is a 3-step process that I've created that helped me reverse my own Hashimoto's, and then it's helped hundreds of clients do the same. So it's pretty exciting. I love sharing this message with everyone.
Yeah, taking yourself back to even just being 7, 8 years old and receiving that message, and like, how do you feel that has actually catapulted the rest of your years? Like, do you recall and remember, like, kind of going back, and tell me a little bit about that? Like,
so this is fun. This is, Kim, this is something you talk about a lot, and I do too. We have these stories that we tell in our heads, and some of the stories are ours. Other stories were given to us by our parents, or in this case, the story was handed to me by my doctor. And the story states, you will never get better. You cannot heal from this. You'll have to take this pill forever. That's the story. So the way I teach it is that these stories almost become like a soundtrack that is playing below everything that happens in our life. And an experience that I had recently that really drove this home for me, it was at Christmas time, and I got in my car and Jingle Bells was playing on the radio. So I had my son with me, he's 3. We're singing Jingle Bells, and then I got a phone call. So Jingle Bells cut out. I'm talking on the phone through the speaker in the phone or in the car. And then I hung up the phone, and then he and I both were singing in a one horse open sleigh. And he says, Mommy, turn the music back on. So we turned it on, and it matched up exactly with what we were singing in our heads.
Yeah, interesting.
So this was a cool moment for me. Number one, that my 3-year-old son was capable of that. Number two, it showed to me how our brains can continue relaying a message regardless of what else is going on. So here I am having this phone conversation, doing business in my car with Jingle Bells playing the whole time. So that's like an actual try that. That is a really cool test run to do on your own brain. But then I want you to apply that to whatever thought system you have going on. So for me, from the time I was 8 years old till I was 37, 6 years old, 36 truly, I had that soundtrack playing that said, you'll never heal, you'll never get off this medication, you'll take it forever. That was my Jingle Bells. And no matter what I was doing, I just kept coming back to the same song. Let's see where we're at in the song. And the thing that happens with that is your brain is programming your cells what to do. So if that's the message, if that's the soundtrack, then yeah, my cells are going to keep needing thyroid medication because that's the music that's being played.
Yeah, over and over. It's like we're basically hypnotized up into the age of 7 or 9 years old. Like what we've heard, what we've experienced, like even being in a home where there's like violence or like it just becomes the norm. Like you don't know, it's just kind of like familiar, right? And the stories that we tell ourselves, we take on as our truth. Like, especially right now, I'm thinking more than ever, like what is truth? Is there truth? There is no truth. Like truth is to the beholder of the way we perceive things, right? Like what is our mind thinks there's a truth. Our mind thinks it knows what's going to happen next. But this coronavirus has taught us that more than anything else is we have no idea. And when our brain has no idea, like to go back and grab information, like you were going back and grabbing information. But right now, there's nothing to go back and grab. We've never experienced anything like this. And so we're in this little eerie state, right? The only thing it can do is go and predict the worst case scenario according to the other worst case scenarios that have happened in the past. So it's so much like this. I use the example, or the way our unconscious works is like when you drove, well, we're not driving right now, but typically you drive yourself to work or to the store. Do you remember the stop sign? Do you remember the red light? Do you remember how many cars you passed? Or when you're brushing your teeth, like, do you remember brushing your teeth? No, our subconscious takes over. We go on autopilot.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting when it's about illness, disease, or just stories about ourselves. I remember for me, my dad saying I talk too much. Like I was just like my Aunt Brenda talking all of the time. And I was like always busybodied and, I needed more attention. That stuff carried on with me.
Yeah,
So I
it
can,
becomes part of the story. It becomes part of the story, and then you act that story out.
one of the stories that stuck with me about you that you and I shared about, if you don't mind sharing with the audience here, was when you were in the dietitian's office, when you were I just love that story. It made so much
Yeah.
sense of where your brain was going and how it didn't make sense even at a young age,
Mm-hmm.
how the stories didn't match. Do you want to share that with us?
Yeah, for sure. And I'll put a plug in. That story is actually part of my webinar that I would love for you guys to attend. I have a webinar coming up soon, and this is a integral part of my story. It was one of those the pivotal points of my career, truly. So I was 9 years old now. So remember, I got put on the medication at 8 years old. My doctor says you're going to take it forever. This will fix your problem. So now between 8 and 9, it didn't fix my problem. I just continued to have weight gain. It did fix the migraines. I should give it credit for that. So it fixed the migraines, but I kept gaining weight. And I wasn't eating any more or differently than my siblings who were thin. I just continued to gain weight. So we keep going back to this doctor, and he puts me on every diet ever. We're doing the Weight Watchers. We're doing the Zone diet. I remember the Zone specifically because I was 9 years old, sitting in the school cafeteria eating 5 olives because that's all the fat that's allowed on zone. So I like pulled them from my little bag and ate them all sad as a 9-year-old in a cafeteria.
Mm.
So anyway, so yeah, we're trying all these diets and I still am gaining weight. And so he keeps saying, well, it's something you're doing. It's something you're doing. Eat less, exercise more. Don't you know, blah, blah, blah. So now he sends me the dietitian. Like, that's it. I've tried everything with you. You're going to the dietitian. So go to this dietitian's office. And this is a moment I never forgot. I'm sitting there in a room all by myself, which it's curious to me. I was in there without my mom, but I've checked the story out. So it's me in this cold, barren room all by myself. And then the largest man I've ever seen walks in. And he's like over 6 feet tall, probably over 300 pounds. He's just huffing, puffing, and he pulls up the stool. And I remember thinking that stool was going to break if he sat on it. So he plumps down on the stool and he just starts lecturing me. You're eating too many cookies, too many ho-hos. You've got to exercise more, da da da. And I'm telling him, we don't even eat sugar in my house. Like, my mom legit at that point was grinding her own wheat to make bread.
Wow.
Like, we were so holistic. And it was, I mean, we had our own cow. Like, come on. Everything was like so holistic in my house. And so I'm telling him this, and he's just like, no. You don't get to be that size if you're eating that kind of stuff, and you can't eat this. So then he says to me, Missy, if you ever want to lose weight, you have to do what I do. And that is to eat 1 cup of air pop popcorn every night after dinner. So I'm sitting there looking at him, stuffed in his lab coat with the fat poking out between the pockets. And I just remember looking at him and thinking, is that what popcorn looks like when you eat too much? Does it pop out of your jacket like that? Like, how is that the solution? So yeah, it was that moment at 9 years old where I was like, what you're saying doesn't make sense because it's not translating to you. And that's when I really got interested in nutrition more for finding something that would work for me.
Yeah. It's funny how we have like our past experiences are just leading to the work that we're going to do in the world
Yeah.
for so many of us, especially I say in the holistic or in the healer's rim, or, bringing in the integrative, mental, emotional, physical, as well as spiritual. Like, when you start looking back, all of the practitioners that I work with, when we start looking back, we just knew something didn't make sense. I remember being prescribed medication and thinking, what if I can't buy it next month? What if I can't get it again? What if, and I had a very active mind, and I read the Bible from a very young age. So I had my own interpretation of it, which was maybe not what I should have known, but it's the way I understood it. And I was like thinking, what if what if this, all of this stuff does happen and we can't get it, then what? Like, so there was something already that I knew that we had to depend on ourselves and our body's innate ability to heal. But I can't explain it because for you, it was in your household. You lived a holistic life, and your mom was a craniosacral therapist. Like, this was like it was not in mine.
Yeah.
And so I find that so interesting of it doesn't really have that much impact. It does and it doesn't on exactly how we were trained or how we were told, or if we were brought up in religion or not religion and we become a spiritual person. Like, it's really something inside of us.
Yeah.
To know that at 7, 8, 9 years old.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the coolest part is, I believe everyone's born with a light inside of them, and that light knows truth. And so it's just accessing that truth and what's true for you. That's kind of how I see that. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you see that with your clients coming in, that a lot of it is
Oh,
how
yeah.
they've been, I wanted to say bred to believe, but how they've been hypnotized to believe?
Yeah, and it's the whatever stories were told to them. And, it's really fun to be in mindset work and have a 3-year-old because you can see with children, you can see really quickly how they act out whatever they're told. So,
Oh, yeah.
with my son, if I tell him a story that he misbehaves every time that I pick him up from the babysitter's house, then he's going to misbehave every time I pick him up from the babysitter's house, right? So if the story is told that you get so crazy and wild and why do you do that? You're so crazy and wild. Well, then he acts the story out every time that it happens. And so I with kids, it's amazing. So with my son, I'm just like, let's reprogram the story. Let's talk about how exciting it is to pick you up from the babysitter and how I'm so excited to see you. And this is how we behave. And it's just telling them a new story because that's what we do is we we act out our own stories. And my stories can get pretty crazy and wild. They can be kind of nuts.
Collective minds.
Uh-huh.
So I'm thinking of the audience here. What do your clients say? Like, what is the story that they come in with? Just give us a few examples. I don't know, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
What are they
The
thinking?
the stories I hear are similar to mine. And that's why I do what I do, is because I've been them. I've been in their
Right.
shoes. And the story that I hear most often is, um, I went to my doctor. He said I'm fine. I tried a different doctor. He said I'm not fine. I went to the endocrinologist who said I'm fine. Just a lot of the doctor shopping and not finding anyone who can offer a solution. Or there's a lot of frustration that comes with that when I hear that
Yeah,
one a lot.
I was one of those for sure.
Uh-huh. The doctor to doctor. Or the people who carry a diagnosis, but their doctor just kind of has washed their hands of them, just like, well, you're on the medication, so you shouldn't be having symptoms. I hear that one a lot. But the story I hear, I think, most frequently is my story of, they said I'd be on it forever. I check with them once a year. They draw my labs. They say I'm fine, but I feel all of these things. And the thing that we work through a lot is that people, they feel like they can't trust themselves to believe that it could still be a thyroid problem,
Right.
because my doctor says I'm fine, but I have all these symptoms. And so it's reprogramming the story that you can trust yourself and you can trust that light to tell you the truth, and helping you uncover your ability to make healing decisions for your body.
And you're like really getting into a relationship with your body and how it
Mhm.
the language of your body. We know when we feel a little dizzy, a little tired, a little off, a little like, or a little headache lingering, or a pounding headaches, or like that's not just coincidentally happening. It is actually, it's kind of like, the mood of your husband, or your partner or your kid. It's like, okay, there's something more going on here. Like this relationship, this conversation, like we kind of play the parts in relationships, but we don't really think of our like mind body relationship,
Absolutely. I want
our
to
body's language.
I want to add to that, because you got me thinking about an exercise I do. So, I dance that line between Western and modern or Eastern medicine, because we do labs, we do stool testing, we do all the things to find the physical root cause. And then I include, as Kim calls it sometimes, the woo. I include
Woo.
the energy medicine part of it, because the Western and Eastern, there's room for both. And I think they're so important for healing. So, one of the exercises I do, and as you were talking, I just thought of this one. It's to talk to your thyroid. And this one may sound a little bit weird, but I want to put it out there because this is a
Yeah.
really fun exercise and I invite you guys to try it. But what you do is you imagine your thyroid, the little gland, butterfly gland that it is, and you imagine it sitting on a chair next to you. And this one, the first time I did it, I was in my car. So you want to find a place where you're secluded, you're by yourself, no one's going to hear you talk, because you're going to be talking out loud. And you just talk to it. And you just tell your thyroid all the things you think about it. And the first time I did this, I was sitting in a car, I was driving by myself, and I just started telling my thyroid how angry I was that it was not working, that I had spent so much time, that I'd tried all the diets, I'd tried all the supplements, I put thousands of dollars into this gland, all of these things I had done, and it was not working. And I'm just mad. I'm telling it,
Yeah.
and it's so good. The brain loves to hear things spoken. So you tell that gland everything you want to say. And the thing that happened that was so amazing, as I was talking to the thyroid and I heard my own voice, I could see that little gland like getting all shriveled and gray and like, why should I work? You hate me. And I saw that gland in that moment for just the sweet little thing it was trying to do under this mean rule of my nasty thoughts. Like, ew, why would I ever work for someone that treats me that way? And, I actually cried. I sobbed that day when I realized what I was saying to my body. When I actually spoke the things that had been going on in here and I heard them, I was like, oh, that is just disgusting. That is so wrong, because I would never speak to anyone like in my physical world. I would never say anything like that to anyone I know in my life. And so I invite you guys to do that with whatever, and you can even do that with whoever. You can put a person into the seat next to you. But the trick on that, what it does in your brain is it allows your brain to speak and then hear
Right.
what it is you're thinking about yourself.
And we do this to ourselves with parts of ourselves, like how like, could we speak to ourselves the way we would to a 3 or 4 year old?
Right.
Like with that gentle compassion and understanding, but there's a part of us that hasn't like fully grown up or like come on board emotionally. And we're like so mad at her. We want to throw her in the ditch. We want her to grow the heck up. We want her to come on in and we're going to do this tough stuff. And poor little thing is like shrinking back. And so you imagine we're doing exactly that to our organs, not just our
Mhm.
thyroids, our body, our organs. But I want to talk a minute about, because I know we can kind of get into this woo just for a moment. We'll just touch on
The
it,
woo.
but how, how out, the actually energy and emotions show up in different parts of the body. And when we're
Yes.
talking about thyroid, we're talking about using our voice. We're talking about
Mhm.
expressing and communicating, which so many of us are afraid to do. And what's your thoughts about how that's actually what we're seeing right now is how that is impacting so many people? Because I don't know what the percentage is, but do you know what the percentage is of people who have thyroid dysfunction?
It's estimated 200 million. And then they're saying that 100 million don't even know they have it. Now, after the coronavirus outbreak, that number might skyrocket
For
because
sure, for
thyroid
sure.
is
Stress.
absolutely
Yeah.
impacted by stress. Yeah. But yeah, what Kim's referring to is Eastern medicine. It's this belief that different organs hold different emotions.
Yep.
And I am deeply into that woo as well. But the thyroid is about not being able to speak your truth.
Yep.
And that goes back to, like I was saying, everyone has that light, everyone can recognize truth. And when you don't speak that truth for yourself, it absolutely can impact energetically the function of the thyroid. And I resembled that remark my entire life because I
Yeah.
was the peacemaker. And, Kim, we went through this in the program, but I had misunderstood that being a peacemaker meant that I didn't get to speak my truth. And I was a people pleaser. And I misunderstood that being a people pleaser meant that I didn't get to speak my truth. And so there was a lot of me stifling my thoughts and feelings in order to manipulate someone else's thoughts and feelings, meaning that I didn't want them to be upset or mad. And so I wouldn't state what I was thinking and feeling. And that absolutely suppresses thyroid function.
Yeah. And it's so fascinating. This is my favorite thing to talk about. So I do want to make sure we move on. So catch it if I stay here for too long. But I think that's such a big part. And I remember for me in my life in particular, it's like I even had my tonsils out at that time when I was like really coming into my voice and trying to like kind of be heard, that for my uniqueness or whatever the message is that I wanted to share with the world, my service to the world. And that's really one of the big parts when I put the pieces together was following at that time it was Louise Hay's work and she was connecting
Yeah.
all of it. And I was just like blown away. And then I went back to like connecting what was happening when I had my appendix out and what was happening, when I other things in my body that were kind of, I don't say going wrong, but getting out of alignment where that
Hmm.
conversation had broken. And we think that we need like healing outside of ourself, but really what we need is connection to ourself. We need to
Yeah.
recognize that it's that little knock where the symptoms first start appearing. That's the little knock to call us in and say, "Hey, I'm here. Like we need to sit and have a conversation. Let's look over this." But we are trained to ignore that. We're trained to be quiet, don't make any trouble, go sit over there, you need to wait. And that's such a big part of why I think we're experiencing it today is we're getting all of the aftermath. And
Yeah.
I want to make sure that they get some takeaway with this particular time right now, just with this outbreak and everything that's happening and the stress. Could you explain to people what kind of impact the stress and anxiety and nervousness has on the endocrine system, has on the hormone function,
Yeah.
just so that they have an awareness of maybe like, oh, yeah. Because if they just hearing it, right, just hearing it, we can start taking precaution.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that from two different angles. So we'll talk about it from hormone and then from bacteria. So if I stray, bring me back.
I know.
Because
This is why we love each other so much, guys. It's like when we first talked, the very first conversation, it was like, okay, this is my girl.
yeah, yeah, Kim and I will end up somewhere in left field. So we're going to stay focused. Okay, so first hormone, that aspect. So I'm such a data nerd. And like I said, I walk the Western medicine model and then I like the Eastern medicine stuff too. So if you throw out to me some woo, I'm going to find data to support it. Like I'm like,
Right.
nope, find me data. So my favorite research that I've really dug deeply into is about how our thoughts are converted into hormones. And this isn't being spoken out about by a lot of people, but it is absolutely happening. So what's happening is in the brain, there are nervous impulses going all the time, right? The brain is made of 100 trillion neurons. Don't quote me. Yes, 100 trillion. Anyway, neurons, tons of neurons. So basically, it's just energy bouncing around all the time. And those energy impulses, they can be converted into hormones with the hypothalamus gland. So the hypothalamus is the only gland in the body that's part of the nervous system and the endocrine system. So that means it's working with energy and hormones. So you've got these crazy thoughts running around. Your hypothalamus takes that negative thought, converts it into a hormone. So a really good example in the modern time would be crazy energy running around. I'm scared. I'm afraid I'm going to get a virus. La-di-da, bounce around, crazy, fear, panic, panic, panic. And then the endocrine system, the hypothalamus is like, oh, that's a scary thought. Wow. Ooh, that's very scary. Let's make a physical response. So the hypothalamus then sends a message out to the adrenals to produce cortisol and adrenaline. And those are amazing hormones if we're being chased by a bear. Like, I want those hormones all day because we're going to get out of the situation. But when we're sitting still in front of the Facebook live feed or the news or reading on our local page, what's happening is those hormones are being sent the same way as if we need to run, but we're sitting still. So elevated cortisol, elevated adrenaline, epinephrine, those hormones over time, what they do is they suppress thyroid function. So it creates this imbalance in all of your hormone accesses. And that's the problem with thoughts that are running wild, because we can shut that down just by becoming aware of it. And through tools that I teach, that Kim has taught me, we have tools to become aware of those thoughts and then address them and change them. And so it fixes the hormones in the same time. So that's hormone aspect of it. Bacteria are a completely different aspect that are impacted as well. So Kim, when you were talking about losing your tonsils and appendix, I was like, uh-huh, because your story is like everyone that I hear. Most people that come to me have already lost appendix, tonsils, gallbladder, sometimes thyroid, but it's all these vestigial organs that modern medicine is just get rid of it.
Deal. That's what they tell me. It's no big deal.
No biggie, take it out. It can go. But the question that I always have is, why did you lose that? And it really comes back to bacteria balance in the body, because bacteria, we have 10 bacteria to every one human cell. So we've got 10 bacterias, one human cell. That blows my mind every time I talk about it, because what that means is we're more germ than we are human. And these 10 little friends, they are making decisions about our hormones, our neurotransmitters, so that affects our mood, our weight, how we digest our food. They decide about our skin, our hormones. Every decision is made by these bad boys. So what we know is having a balanced bacteria in the gut specifically, but having a good balance of good and bad bacteria, that impacts your thyroid function. That's the angle that I come from, is we want to have good thyroid function. But it impacts your tonsils, like you had your appendix. When people lose the appendix, that tells me already that they've got wacky bacteria. Gallbladder is affected by that too.
That's
so
fun too.
anyway,
I've had 15 surgeries, so that's why I'm so passionate about this story. If I'd been put to sleep 15 times,
for real.
and yeah, I mean, most of my elective body parts are gone. I still have a spleen and I have 2 kidneys. Like, so I'm good. There's my extras.
She's running. Right. Okay.
Yeah,
so
but
get a kidney. Kim has one.
so this is a big deal. Like, I remember, like, I want my organs back. I want my female organs back. Like, I had a complete hysterectomy when I was 29 years old. Like, I am doing this from the cleanest space of truly prevention, awareness, and like by telling our story, so many other people are living the same exact thing. Can we give them some takeaways? Because that was my thing, even at a young age. It was like, if this is why I'm experiencing it, in order to figure it out, to teach it, like, how did I even know that I would be in this position today, right? Doing it this way.
So before we walk away from bacteria, then yes, we're going to have takeaways.
Thank you.
So bacteria, remember, you've got these 10 bacterias that are influencing your one human cell. They are highly influenced by our thoughts. And that one, when I found the research on that, I was like, whoa, okay,
That's
So
cool.
what we know is bacteria decide our health, and then now we know that our thoughts can impact our bacteria. So where does it all start? Up here, right? So the thing that's interesting for my other microbiome nerds out there, there's been some research that shows that what they did is they did stool samples on people in a non-stress state and then in a stress state. And what they found is when there's stressful thoughts going on, and it doesn't mean physical stress, it means mental stress. When there's mental stress going on, they found that the bifidobacteria in the stool was significantly decreased. And that's a bacteria that we need to produce our neurotransmitters. It helps us with digesting our foods. It prevents us from gaining weight. It builds our immune system. So these specific bacteria are essential for health, and they're being diminished by stressful thoughts. So that's like super impactful for me, and all the more reason to get control of your brain.
All the more reason to improve your relationship with your mind and body.
Yes, exactly. Hmm.
Guys, that's really the ticket here, is that integrative approach to holistic wellness. So let me make sure I got, like, I want to go down the list because I'm really we're still kind of new to this interviewing style thing. So I want to make sure I got everything. And one of the questions I really wanted to ask you about is, like, realized the moment when you knew there was more. So you were at a very young age, but when you made the decision, I'm going to take this back to 2018, like, let's come to the now, when you made the decision, like, my body has the innate ability to heal itself. And you started doing this work and bringing it in. I want to talk to those who do know that there is more, and they're trying it, and then something happens and their stress gets triggered, and then they have a doubt, and then they remember what someone said, and then they go back. I call this like the transition of transformation. It's that moment in between beliefs, like, I'm not that anymore and I'm not this yet, and it's that in between. And I just want to ask you that, like, how was that for you when you knew you were on the right path, or you thought you were, but then you had doubts? Like, could you, I know there are quite a few people who are going to hear this part of the story. Could you help bridge the belief?
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a good question. And I love that you asked that, because it's making me be really introspective. Because how it went for me is I became aware that I was having a thought that I would never get off of my medication. And that awareness for me, when I first had that awareness, it was like I was sitting in my functional medicine doctor. So by that time, I had found a doctor that I adored, and she was a functional medicine practitioner. And I was telling her how frustrated I was with this gland, the one that I had reamed out in my car, and telling her how I was aware that I was being really nasty to it, but I just really wanted to be off medication. And she just looked me right in my eyeballs and she just said, Missy, how do you think you'll ever get off that medication when you don't even believe it's possible? And I talk about this as my moment when you're sitting there and the camera zooms
Mhm.
out, and then you're just a little ant sitting on a log, and you realize how insignificant you are, because that I wasn't even aware that the belief wasn't there. So I was aware I was having a thought that I would never get off thyroid medication. And then I had some cranial sacral work done with my mom, and she really helped me process this thought. But if that's not an option for people, it's just having the awareness first of all, and then working through um, a new thought. So my new thought became, I am free from thyroid medication. And as soon as I shuffled into that thought, as soon as I became fixed on that thought, it was crazy. It was like within 2 months, I was off of thyroid medication. Like my body was just like, see ya, don't need that. And I need to be clear though, this is in combination with my gut healing program. Yeah. So it's not as simple as like, I don't need thyroid medication anymore because I believe I don't. And then throw your, no, we don't do that.
Oh, we build the bridge.
Yeah, we
Build the
build
bridge.
the bridge.
I think of
So
the bridge is like when you're at one of these amusement parks and they move, like, sometimes you're in doubt, sometimes you're in belief, and
yeah,
your bridge is like moving through and you're trying things.
exactly. And you're just learning as you go. And so, yeah, I get that question a lot. Missy, is it just as easy as changing your thoughts? No, no. We have
No.
got to address the physical structure problems first. We got to find the root cause. But in my case, I'd already done those things. And then this final piece of awareness of the thought was the catapult. So now I am off of medication, and I took my last pill of thyroid medication. The last one I've ever taken was on Thanksgiving Day of 2018. And I want to say that I never looked back, and I have said that. But I think that everyone can agree when you make a huge transition in your life like this, when you had a way of being for 28 years and now you wake up the next morning and you don't take a medication anymore when it's been the norm of your entire life, that feels really scary. And there was a lot of doubt and there was a lot of disbelief in those beginning months. And I remember sharing that with people in my inner circle of like, okay, I haven't taken it in a month now and just waiting for the crash.
Yeah, like
And
waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like,
for real, yeah, I think that went on for like 6 months. And even Kim, you crossed into that at one point where I had a migraine.
yeah, I remember.
And I was sure it was because I had my thyroid quit working again. And I went back to that old story because it was an old symptom. And what was most beneficial in that time, Kim, was some coaching you gave me about it's just a headache. Nothing's gone wrong here. One single headache does not make a thyroid disease. It's just a headache.
Those neural pathways are so strong, like innocently. Like, could we just love and have
Yeah.
compassion for that part of ourselves that believed that for so many years? And I think that is something that's missing. We go right into this white knuckling and beating ourselves up and blaming ourselves, and there's something wrong with us. We see this in, all the mind body, the pain body, the like all of these undiagnosed ailments and
Mhm.
that whole world, because I serve a big portion of that world. And as soon as that's like right now having this crisis, like it's like this PTSD, like, all of these things come up and then you have this symptom and then your mind, the neural pathway of there's something wrong with me. That's how we identify it from the child. It's like there's something wrong with me. Whatever the reason was, I was overweight, I talk too much, I'm bigger than my brothers and sisters, whatever it was that you were told, that we don't forget that. So it takes an act of practice.
Mhm.
And that's the part. And I wanted to mention it because some of these who are going to hear this, they are in that position where they've been doing the work or they have been seeing the practitioners. And then there's some that have no idea about bringing the mindset work in. And then there's those who are doing only the mindset work. That was me. I was doing the Louise Hayes affirmations, but I
Mhm.
didn't have the tools to unpack the story, to unpack the limited beliefs, the unconscious that was running. I didn't know about that. And I remember stopping my bike one day and I was like riding and I was listening to an old Hay House summit. And I was like, no, Louise, there's something missing. Like we got to pull the plug on the belief. Like it's still there. No matter how many times I say it, I didn't believe it. So would you
Mhm.
say that is the bridge? Is
Oh, for sure.
continuing to go through those first three steps of
Oh,
presence,
yeah.
unveil, navigate?
Well, and what you just said is it's an act of practice.
Yeah.
And I would even go with you that it's active practice. It's
Yeah.
actively practicing it every single day. And what I found for me is journaling was huge for me. Um, the thing that I've learned about my own brain is that I need to either see things written or I need to have them spoken and then fed back to me until I can really hear or see it. And that was news to me until I started coaching because we think we can hear our own thoughts. We think we can be like, oh, yeah, no, I'm thinking this weird thing. We can't. We need someone to feed them back to us or to see them written.
It's so familiar. We think it's a fact. That's
Exactly.
the
We think
problem.
it's a
So we
fact.
have someone else has to say, wait a minute, you do realize that that was just a thought. And we're like, oh, no, 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 it's true. I have like all of the
I got
evidence.
data. Got data.
Got my brain's
Yeah.
data. Like we have been
Uh-huh.
figuring this out. So it's interesting you say that. So for me in particular, I have to feel it. So
Yeah.
I can
That's
see it, I
interesting.
can hear it, but it is not solid. And that's why I do this integrative work. It's
Yeah.
not solid for me until it's processed, integrated, and embodied. And once it's embodied, it is like my big T, my truth. Like it just becomes that in that moment in time, of course, that according to my perception, until the next truth comes along, until
Yeah.
the next thing is integrated and processed. So I
That's so
love,
good.
yeah, that recognizing that. So I want to make sure we don't go too much longer, and I want to have an opportunity to kind of talk about not exactly what you do in the program, but just like if you gave a before and after, where they are now, how many have been recently diagnosed, or just, I know for me, I have all of the symptoms, but then the test results
Mhm.
weren't conclusive. And so
Yeah.
that's a lot of the consultations that I've done, that's where they are.
Yeah, exactly. And those are the people that I love to serve. I like all levels on the spectrum. I like people that aren't even sure if they have a diagnosis or people who have had it for 28 years and they can talk down to the cellular level with me. I love all cases. But your story, Kim, is very common. And I get people that are like, well, I have these labs. And the thing with labs, the lab ranges that are provided are huge. Like, for example, with TSH, they say you can be from zero point 0.5 to 5. And that range is so stinking huge that there's so much room for dysfunction within that, where your doctor will say you're fine. But like within my work, I like to see people below 1.5. And that, of course, we need other labs to go along with it. So part of having normal labs, that means nothing to me unless you have someone who knows how to read the labs. And unfortunately, a lot of doctors just go with the ranges. You're within range, you're fine. So that is one piece that we do in my program is
I
go
get
ahead.
the opposite. So you're within range, but
Uh-huh.
you probably need a low dose.
Oh,
Like so
yeah.
I was medicated 3 different times,
Yeah.
regardless of the normal range because of the symptoms.
Yeah. And see, it's interesting because you can find both types of doctors in the world. So, yeah,
Mhm.
I've seen cases like yours too. But for me, I like to do deeper testing on the gut and to see what's going on with bacteria because we can see that labs are wrong, but the thing about serum levels is they can lie. And that is a really big statement. There are people that don't agree with me on this. But your blood levels, they tell us what's not in the tissue. So if I go and I take something out of your blood, it means that it's not being used currently in the cells. Therefore, we could have elevated levels of things because they're not in the cell. B12 is a good example of that. Like if you have high B12, they'll be like, "Oh, stop taking your B12." And it's like, "Well, no, it's because it's not actually getting into the cell." That's why we've got a situation here. And that can be indicative of inflammation or bacteria. Truly, it's bacteria imbalance. But anyway, so I like to do stool testing because poop can't lie. Poop is what happened inside of you and what came out of you. And so poop, we do, for lack of a better term, we do poop and blood testing because we put those together to find the root cause. And I'm a big fan of testing and not guessing for that reason. Now, I forgot the other part of your question. What was it?
Oh, if, before and after, like that's how they're coming. It's basically an
Yes.
inconclusion. They really are not sure. Either the test has been inconclusive, or it was like, look, go ahead and take a low dose, and we'll just see. So how can we bring this like to their awareness? Like, what are they looking for?
Are you talking about what symptoms they might have or the type of,
Like yeah, and like when to know to reach out, or what is it that
yeah.
what can you help them with for them to get some sort of like affirmation or like
Hmm.
conclusion or to know, because I find that there's so much conflicting information, like just the whole hormone world in general.
Yeah, the hormone world. So that's who I'm talking to. I'm talking to women, truly. These are women who are generally middle-aged. We're talking anywhere. Well, currently I have clients for anywhere from 20 to 70, but I'll take upward. Oh wait, no, I have an 89-year-old. Let's give myself credit. She's the sweetest. Anyway, so all ages. But what we're looking for is, or what symptoms you might be experiencing, or anything related to hormone imbalance. So most frequently, that manifests as hair loss. That's the big one that I get a lot of people for. The last third of your eyebrows will fall out. You'll have skin conditions. Constipation is a big one. Any type of digestive upset. So, bloating, gas, constipation, diarrhea, mood. If there are things going on with depression, anxiety, all of that comes from the gut. Inability to sleep. We have women with infertility issues. We have basically if you think you have a hormone problem going on, then we need to look in your gut. That's how that goes. So my message right now is marketed to the thyroid world because that's my personal story and that's who I've been working with. But the program is open to everyone. And right now I even have, it's probably half and half, honestly. I have thyroid people, people with diagnosed thyroid conditions, and then people with just random autoimmune diseases. I love autoimmune disease too. Mine was autoimmune. So the takeaway from this is if you have a symptom that your doctor is not finding a solution for and you feel like there is more, you feel like that light inside of you is saying, this is not truth for me, well, then I want to chat. Let's chat about it. There's always solutions. We can find
Yeah.
something.
And I love that because you can come from the, what we talk about in the program is that stability first.
Yeah.
Because I remember like not being sure and going, and I was like, is this like spiritual? Like, is this a dark night of the soul? Is this hormonal? Is this hereditary depression? Is it? I just knew something was off, right?
Yeah.
So I was like reaching for all of the things. And I find there's so many humans in that exact position. There's no like answer, like no guideline, no, like you don't know where to go, you don't know where to start. There's so much, it's just so much. And for sure we're seeing even more of that right now. Everybody's just coming out, we have an overwhelming information coming at us. We're
Yeah.
trying to like take it in and understand it. We're trying to interpret it in a way that it'd be tangible for us, and it's so complicated and confusing. So I want to like get out of that world and really come into the mindset world and how we integrate. And tis the word integrative life coaching, or integrative, I don't want to use the word healing because it is not we the healer, but it is the self healing that we hold the space for through integrating mindset, emotions, your physical body on the material world, and spirituality. That is a whole nother topic that you and I agree so much on.
Yeah.
Is you need the four pillars: the integration, embodiment, like in other words, owning that soul essence in this material world, in this physical body. Such a big deal. Could you link that together with what you do?
Yeah. Let me use this thought that came up while you were talking, because we're recording this during the coronavirus outbreak and the stay home orders. Are you guys on stay home order?
Yep,
Yeah, we are
pretty
too.
much.
So
I mean, we still have stores open and emergency stuff, but there's for sure traffic behind me. I hear it.
yeah, same for us. So I'm in California, Kim's in Louisiana. So the whole world has been called to slow down. And what you were just talking about with the overwhelm, what's happening in the world right now is there is a collective overwhelm. Everyone is overwhelmed collectively. We don't know what information to listen to. We've got people moved to Facebook instead of their normal social places, and it's just messages everywhere. Look here, look there, look here. The overarching emotion then is overwhelm. And a discussion we've been having in our group is, how do you know if the emotion is yours or if it's just from the collective universe? And that's something that I've been dealing with too. Is I have felt overwhelmed at moments in this crisis because I have been jumping in the pool of the collective overwhelm. And that's something that this process helps you bring awareness to: is what thoughts are yours, what thoughts are not yours, and the things that are within your control and the things that are outside of your control. So that's the basis of my teaching: is that within our control are our thoughts, our emotions, our actions, and our results. Those are the things we have full control over. Everything outside of us, outside of those things, is not our control. They're just things that are happening around us. And so that's the biggest teaching in my program, is helping people see that if Kim is overwhelmed right now, I don't need to be overwhelmed too. I can still have my own thoughts. I can still, which lead to my emotions, my actions, and results, and being able to separate what is mine and what is not mine.
Yeah. We had a conversation about this, and I think I did, I don't even remember what today is, but I think yesterday, where I did a meditation, drop it down into the
Mhm.
body so that we can feel into our own self. And really, if you are feeling super overwhelmed and you can't fix, like you're using all of the things, you're meditating, you're like using the mindset work, you're doing your self coaching, and you still can't, it's more than likely collective. It's just what's
Yeah.
happening right now. It's
Mhm.
so hugely impactful, especially if you're lean more towards being an empath, like, and you
Yeah.
feel everything, you have open head center, open root center, then you are definitely feeling the pressure and the anxiety of everyone else. And I think, though, even if it's someone else, even if it's yours, it's still going to require the first step, which is coming back to presence.
Absolutely. And I'm aware that I'm feeling overwhelmed because I have stepped outside of the things that are not mine to control. I'm aware of that. That's a
Mm.
big one for me, is when I step outside of my control and I'm in other people's business, God's business. Those are the terms sometimes used.
Yeah.
I do feel overwhelmed. And then I'm like, "Oh, that's because I stepped out of my own business. I'm in a space I don't have control anymore."
Right. What do we have control of?
Our thoughts.
That's it. I'm
That's
like,
all.
we actually come to realize that we have two choices.
Mhm.
We can resist what is, or we can allow what is.
Mhm.
And that
Yeah.
pretty much determines our peace of mind, our way of being, our ease, joy, bliss, freedom, and expression and experience. Like, are we resisting what is happening, or are we allowing that to happen and we're staying here? Because everything that happens here in presence is figure outable.
Absolutely, because I think we could spend our entire lives, and Facebook will validate this. We could spend our entire lives debating about whether the coronavirus should have happened. And it's like, well, it is happening. So we can debate reality or we can just say this is happening and what am I going to take away from it? And thus far coronavirus has been a fabulous teacher for me. I have had so many moments of discomfort that have required me to dig in deeper, and I've also had really cool moments of teaching and growth. And overall, I'm grateful for this. It's a really cool teacher.
Yeah, I for sure found my space of comfort, and it is in service. And that's why I
Yeah.
was like, let's get all of the coaches on board and let's just go out and serve and let's get these videos downloaded. Let's get some interviews done. Let's put this work out into the world. I feel super solid when I'm in service. What about you?
Same story. I had a moment where I spazzed out yesterday and needed coaching in our group, but it was because I stepped outside of things I can control. And I was in the collective overwhelm. And yeah, when I sat down and looked at my thoughts and saw that I was trying to debate reality and it wasn't mine to control, I came back to a similar thought that this time with the coronavirus, it's an amazing time to serve and to teach and to be present and to help each other. Like that's what I'm loving most about this event is neighbors are coming together, families are coming together. We're all checking on each other. It's the coolest thing.
It's a coming home to ourselves, coming back to the land, coming back to our knowing. It's reconnected. We were so missing that.
Yeah.
When we look at it from that aspect, it's such a gift of this spiritual awakening, this reconnection, this spiritual healing. It's like really slowing the heck down. Now we can get present, get centered, and then we can turn on that conversation with our body, with ourselves, and then with
Mhm.
others. But it has to start with us. So I want to talk about where can they find you? And I know you have webinars. They consistently go on. So when is this going to be aired? I mean, we don't know when you're hearing this, if this is going to be aired, but
Yeah.
you do have this consistently. So can you bring them into your world where they can find where the next one
Mhm.
is? And also just maybe what would you like to share, as a last closing that could help someone today?
Yeah. So in closing, my message is so simple and it's this: healing is available. Healing is available to you. And I'm so confident in saying that because I reversed my own thyroid symptoms. And so I love walking people through this process where they can heal themselves and they can reverse whatever symptom they come to me with. It's available. You can have it. And we do that through a simple 3-step process, which the webinar talks about. And I'm inviting you all to attend that. Like Kim says, I do enrollment 3 to 4 times a year, and we have enrollment coming up soon. So we'll drop the link. Well, this is YouTube, but wherever we publish this,
We'll get it. We'll get
you'll
it up.
get it. It'll be there. How to find me, and you can go to the webinar page and you can sign up. And I would love for you guys to attend that because we'll go more in depth in the things I discussed here and then answer questions that may come up in regards to the actual program. So find me there, and then well, I was just going to
We
say,
also have the podcast episode where you were
yeah,
interviewed on the podcast, and that has your links hooked
that
to
has
it.
the links, and then the easiest place to find me is on Facebook and my store. So I own a health food store, and all of this is ran through the health food store. So that's the name of the store is Health Habit. And if you go to that Facebook page, we have links for all these things. So that's the best place to go if you're just like, what did she say? Just find us at Health Habit on Facebook.
And for those who are new, the podcast is called More Than Mindset. And I wish I knew the number. Is it episode 58 or 59 that we interviewed you on? So we can, I should know that. So we can find it there. And also there's a Facebook group called More Than Mindset. Missy is there. All of the coaches are there. And myself, this is a place where we come in and teach. Everyone here has something new to offer the world. I say something new in the way that they present it according to their experience, their skill set, and whatever their practitioner specialty is. It's a very variety. All right, guys, if anyone wants to look up Missy, go to Missy Beavers, healthyhabits.com.
Health Habit.
Health Habit.
Health Habit, or yeah, you could look up Missy Beavers on Facebook as well. That'll link you to my page. Let's be friends.
Let's be friends. Let's leave comments.
Yeah, more friends. Come on.
Yeah. All right. Look at
Thanks,
us. We
Kim.
have 4 minutes left. We did great.
Whoa.
No, I
Wow.
wanted to really keep it down. So I want to make sure we got all of this covered. I think so. Your story. What do we do? The integrative approach. What changed things for you, made it different. And it was actually you walking to getting out to the other side, like figuring it out. And that's a big congrats. There's a lot of people who have not figured it out yet. So I know you have so much to offer them.
Yeah. And I want to be clear on that. Even figuring it out, I'm still figuring out a ton of other stuff. So, I think we need to give ourselves grace in that of like, whenever we figure out one thing, there's always going to be something else. And
Oh,
so we've never arrived. It's just once we arrive at this one platform, we can invite other people up with us.
yeah.
So everything I do is community. Everything is growth together.
It's basically, I'm like, we get to the end, we run around the track, and then we get there, and then we have a new crowd to run with on the next one.
Exactly.
We're like,
Let's
wait
do
a
this
minute, this is
together.
it. I'm here. I got it. And then I'm like, no, we actually just keep going. As long as we're alive, as long as we're breathing, we just keep going down, going down, going down the track.
Well, mine's going up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, around. It's fascinating once I realized that the more I think I know, and then I get to that end again, it's like the more I'm like, I had no idea. Our
Oh, man.
mind thinks it knows, and it
Oh,
doesn't.
yeah.
And
I
this
always say, like, specifically with nutrition, the more I learn, the stupider I get. Like, I have an all out master's degree, and I can't even tell you right now if a carb is good or bad because research will tell you one thing, and then research will tell you another. And it's just like, okay, yeah, the more you learn, the stupider you get.
the only like assurance that I have is when I'm truly connected, I know exactly what to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
But we
The
have
knowing is
to
there.
take
Yeah.
people there. We have to give them access to their own brilliance, to their
Mhm.
own knowing. It's there for us always, always
It's that
has been.
light. It's that light. We're all born with it. Yeah.
And we will end with that because that's a beautiful thought. All right, Missy, thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Kim. Bye, everyone.